Oh, hey, all right. So Mindy and I are back. This is episode three of our Now That I Know podcast. This week, we are going to try our darndest to fly our Gen X flags at the same time we talk about the reality of leadership gaps that we hear so much in the press and elsewhere about the different generations and their work styles and things like that. We want to take a look at the what we think of as the leadership gaps that we've experienced as leaders, both to and from us with the folks who work for us or work with us, and how that so-called feral upbringing of ours uh, and the idea of implied knowledge may have created, in some ways, a disconnect between what we think of as executive intent and how things actually happen in reality and operations, just and in life. Before we kind of dig into that, Mindy, anything you would add to that intro?
Whatever.
Whatever. Ah, perfect. See, and as the more astute among you or who are looking may notice, she's doing a little Gen X representation herself there. That little Star Wars, and of course her Wookiee was just right off camera. Uh, her Wookiee George. Yeah, yeah, and of course I am representing Ferris here. Ferris still needs to be saved, I guess. The cute little anecdote I'll share about this, and Mindy, you remember this? Mindy and I were in wine country. Yeah, yeah, it's wine country. We were in
Yeah.
wine country in Texas. Oh gosh, I think it was probably 6, 7 years ago, something like that. And
Hmm.
we were walking through this little idyllic downtown, town there in Texas. And I had this exact shirt on, and there was an older gentleman who crossed paths with us as we were going down the street, and he stopped us, and he was very sincere, and he says, I don't know who this Ferris fella is. He says, but I've got $20 in my pocket if it'll help. And
Right.
I
What
and
can
he
I do
was,
to help?
what can I do to help? And this
Yeah.
man was deadly serious, deadly earnest, and he was 75 if he was a day, and
Yeah.
maybe a bit older. So he obviously didn't know anything about Ferris Bueller, and I felt so bad. It's
Hmm.
like, no, sir, it's a movie. I apologize. No, please keep your wallet in your pocket. It's okay.
Hmm.
And we've been laughing about that, good naturedly now for, like I said, for 6, 7 years. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show you that gap. As much as we like to think that our culture is everyone's culture and all that,
Hmm.
he was just a pretty good example of that gap between what
Hmm.
we experienced as adolescents and so forth, young adults, and how we brought that into our work lives and so forth. Right? You and I, as people who are of the same age, uh, our references are, pretty aligned. They're getting older, but they're still aligned. We don't have that. We don't have that even with our kids
Yeah.
or the folks who are in the workplace now who are frighteningly enough younger than our kids to
Yeah.
some degree, right?
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 years, something like that. So this today, I think, is a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about how we are still navigating those gaps between our Gen X sensibilities and experience and what's happening in the modern workplace, right? And so, if you don't mind, Mindy, what I'll do is I'll go through these questions. We'll go through them together. I want to throw the first one out here to you, and it says, hey, and you knew this one too. It's
Hmm.
how does our Gen X just figure it out mentality, that we were raised with, how does that hinder our ability to provide useful, explicit instructions for our team members who are in a generation or so behind us?
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Well, I think that's just, I think you kind of answered it in the question. I mean, that's just it. We are so used to being autonomous, and what we do and the way we do things comes from being given a fairly broad set of guidelines, a high level category, maybe a goal. This is what you're trying to achieve, but not really any tasks in between or any step-by-step instructions, and we're used to just kind of taking that and running with it, and we've kind of done that our whole lives. I mean, even going as far back as, you come home from school, you're 10 years old, you come home from school, you know that You're hungry, you figure out how to make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? You've seen your mom do it enough times. You know there's bread, there's peanut butter, there's jelly. You do it enough times, you figure out it's better to put the peanut butter on one side, the jelly on the other side, and it comes together better. Nobody told you specifically to do that. You just figured it out, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and it just came from having to, right? Your both of your parents worked, or you were the child of a single parent, so you didn't have any other options. You were home by yourself. And that just translated into kind of how we did things in the workplace. You just
Right.
learned to do it. And the kids younger than our kids, like you mentioned, they don't really operate that way and need more specific instructions than what we thrive under. They need things to be a little bit more broken down. And so when you tell them, I want you to make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's not necessarily something that's going to help them thrive. To make them thrive, you have to tell them, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I want creamed peanut butter, strawberry jelly, and this is how I want you to do it. And
Right.
one is not necessarily better than the other, but in order to help that person be successful, you have to learn to speak your language. So that just figure it out doesn't work for everybody. And so you have to think about what is the way that I can provide instructions to this particular individual person that helps them be successful and helps them deliver the results that I need, and do it in a way that I don't break them.
Yeah, let me for the two people who are about 20 years old who might be listening to this one of these days,
Mhm,
we are purposefully speaking in generalities. Of course, we
mhm,
know stereotypes and all that sort of thing. We're speaking in general terms because, and this is again based on our experience in the workplace, not so much, popular culture, right? So we know that there are people on either end of the spectrum who don't fit that
mhm.
descriptive mold we're laying out for their
Right,
age group. But the idea
right.
is we're saying, hey, generally speaking, this is the experience and this is how we have begun as Gen X leaders to navigate that gap, if you will, and not even so much a gap in experience, but a gap in experiences,
Mhm,
right? And when they were formed and the
mhm,
and the basis around which they were formed. Like you said,
mhm,
latchkey kids,
mhm.
and the term that
Yeah.
you and I've been hearing more the last, I don't know, year or two is that
Mhm.
they went from latchkey to feral, and we're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's us. We were
Yeah, we're
feral, and
feral.
to some degree, to some degrees, we might still be, you know. And so I think that's the to me that's the beginning of a good answer is that
Mhm, mhm,
we have to take a moment as leaders to recognize that what we take for granted in that just do it, just go get it done angle, there's a lot that's implied there, which is we assume that they have the tools. We
mhm,
assume they've got the basic knowledge. We assume
mhm,
they've got the basic intuition and round to its, if you will,
mhm,
to try that. And then
mhm,
if they don't get very far, they've got enough sense, quote, to come back to us and ask for more
mhm,
help or
mhm.
ask for direction or whatever. And it's that in what you'll hear there is a series of assumptions.
Yeah.
We assume A, baby C, and D that they've got all these things in a row. I think what you and I've learned is those are unsafe assumptions to one degree or the other
Yeah.
per individual.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the question that we came up with that sort of stems from that is, you know, what worked or what works? We talked about what we have to do, I think, to tailor our just figure it out mentality. There
Mhm,
are certain aspects of that just figure it out mentality that you and I have found that does work.
mhm,
And let's talk about what does work there and how we try to capture that successful part to
mhm.
extend it for other people. Do you have any?
So I think just figure it out, if you kind of break it down to the basics, it really means figuring out what works for you and figuring out how to problem solve. And that's really what what we should be trying to do, not necessarily going out there and saying, okay, this is what I need done. Here are all 75 steps of this project that I need done, because nobody has time for that. And we don't want to baby people, right? We don't want to
No,
infantilize people.
we can't. We don't want to. Right?
No, because
No,
that's not fair either. But
no.
I think just figure it out to me means, how do we provide them the tools and the skills to be able to problem solve and say, okay, I am in this situation and I need to get this result. How do I get to that result with these 4 sets of instructions that I have, knowing that there are probably 17 more in between? Okay, how do I do
Hmm.
that? So just figure it out worked for us because we didn't have any choice, right? We didn't
Right,
have the
right.
internet. We usually had an incomplete set of encyclopedias.
Yeah.
Maybe there were some things that we could find out on TV. We could ask our parents and they'd say, go look it up in the dictionary.
Or the
Um,
newspaper or
or
the
the
card
newspaper, or don't
catalog.
you read?
Right, right. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
or
yeah.
like the two of us, we read a lot of books.
Right.
And because we read a lot of books, we had some basic knowledge, and we had that thirst for learning, and we had that,
We knew how
that
to. We learned how
right,
to learn. We learned how to learn
right,
from varied sources. You
right.
know.
You were going
Yeah.
to say my thing. You were
I
going to
was
say
not.
various different. Yes, you were.
I refuse. I refuse. Now I'm gonna. What I will do is I will take this opportunity to before I forget to say it. Uh, what you were just describing there, in broader terms, is us telling our folks what success looks like,
Hmm.
right? We're letting them
Yeah.
know, whether you want to call it a KPI or again just success criteria, results, whatever term you want to use in the organization you're in. We're telling them what success looks like. So at the same time, what we're not doing is we're not giving them step by step. We're not
Hmm.
infantilizing. We're not,
Right.
right. We're not setting them up. At the same time, we're not setting them up for failure by them not having an attainable, clear goal. Uh, so to me, that I've seen, that is one of those pieces that you bring to bear that I know works. And another
Hmm.
one, ironically enough, is, and it began. I'm gonna confess here. It began. This impulse I'm going to share began almost. It was a calculated step on my part years ago, and it became part of my habit and part of my DNA. And then relatively soon, it made sense, and I just do it by default because it's the right thing to do. And it was simply this: go out of my way to ask the person what it is they wanted to do in order to complete the job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Get their, heaven forbid, get their
Hmm.
input instead of telling them what to do and when to have it done
Hmm.
by.
Yeah.
Invest them into the plan.
Right.
Hear how they intend to attack the problem.
Hmm.
Uh, because it's, of course, duh, it gets them
Hmm.
invested. And
Yeah.
you know what? Even us Gen X dogs can learn some
Yeah.
new tricks. And pretty
Yes.
soon it became a situation. It's like, man, I didn't think of it that
Hmm.
way. And
Yeah.
so all these lessons we learn from just being
Hmm.
humans to
Hmm.
other
Yeah.
humans, it goes back to, I
Yeah.
hate to say this, it goes back to no matter what school we went to, no matter what training we had, no matter
Hmm.
what experience we had, a lot of
Hmm.
those things,
Hmm.
they weren't taught to us to do that with other humans because, again, speaking in
Yeah.
general stereotypes, our first bosses were boomers,
Yeah.
uh, or maybe even some of those silent
Yeah.
generation type folks. We had
Yeah.
people who were 20 or 30 years older than us when we
Hmm.
joined the workplace in full force in, let's say, the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
Or, in late 80s in high school, whatever. So
Hmm.
we were not, absolutely not taught by those
Hmm.
humans how to
Hmm.
do things.
Yeah.
They said, do it.
Yeah.
Don't ask any questions. If I
Yeah.
want anything from you, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Why aren't you done yet? I mean, these were versions of that theme, right?
Yeah.
Don't burn yourself on the French fries, stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So
Right. This is
yeah,
the break room. This is the bathroom.
right.
This is your desk.
Any questions? ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Shirley
heaven
will
forbid
train you. Oh, by the way,
yeah,
Shirley doesn't know how to use the computer, but you're going to have to use it.
right. Teach and then teach Shirley,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then don't ask me
yeah,
any questions about it because I don't know how to do it. 6 months
yeah.
later, we're teaching Shirley how to do an Excel formula,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And so we didn't, so to put us, to tell again, tell that 20-year-old who might be listening, forgive us for
Yeah.
learning on the fly,
Yeah.
as part of our DNA that shows now that we know, now that we've learned over the last, say, 10, 12, whatever years, working with people in the workplace now who are larger numbers, and
Hmm.
they are, what, 10, 20 years younger than us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're
We
smarter.
and they are orders of magnitude smarter. Let's just
Yeah.
make sure that that gets in the transcript. I mean,
Yeah.
period. Right.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to flip the script a little bit here in that sort of confessional space, and we've talked about as leaders how
Hmm.
we continue to strive to be better, and we're putting this playful Gen X label on it. But the truth is, we're still learning how to be leaders every day. Okay. I had the opportunity a year or so ago, year and a, almost 2 years ago now, um, to in late 2024 join a company that the position I took, my leader was 20 years younger than me. So the script was flipped, right? We've been talking for the last, 10, 15 minutes about what do we do with a generation of people who are younger than us, and how do we lead them, train them, support them, help them be successful, and so on. I found myself in a situation where this person was my boss, and he is 20 years younger. Uh, and so I had to sit down with myself and ask myself, how was I going to navigate that? Because yes, I'm a leader, but in this particular context, he was the leader and I was the IC. Okay, uh, he didn't ask me to come on board in that particular role and exert uh, overt leadership. Right, I was a silent leader by reputation and reference and all those other ways as an IC might be. Um, but I had to ask myself, what was I going to learn from him? How was I going to learn it, and so forth. I had to put my student hat on for the first time in quite a while. Um, I'll say here to anyone who's listening who cares, uh, I learned a great deal about the modern, how do I say this, the modern management uh, culture or training methods or what they're teaching in grad school these days about leadership compared to how I learned how to be a leader and the books I read and the methods. And I think, and to you to a same extent, I will
Hmm.
say that I'm still working through and unpacking the disconnects between
Hmm.
the approach, this modern management approach he appeared to inhabit
Hmm.
compared to mine.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I wouldn't, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't, and I'm gonna, I got two different sides here, so this may sound a little disjointed. So, one, the approach, the way I understood it and the way I heard it coming from you wasn't really a leadership approach. It was, and that's all I'm gonna say, on that side. It was, I don't think that was taught anywhere. I think that was a personal decision. Um, on our side, I don't believe or I don't recall that we were actually really taught leadership. We were taught management, right? And
We were
that's
taught
different.
boss.
We were taught
Yes,
boss,
yes,
and that's
right.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
We learned leadership because we didn't like management. We didn't like boss because as Gen Xers, as feral latchkey kids, we did not like authority.
We didn't need it.
We didn't need it.
Yeah,
We didn't want
right,
it. We don't like
right.
being micromanaged. We don't like people looking over our shoulder. We do not like being perceived. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
anybody who comes in and tries to exert authority is going to make us angry, or at the very
Yeah.
least frustrated and annoyed. And so the last thing that we wanted to do was take that boss management approach that was foisted on us and put it on someone else. So
Yeah.
we sort of tried to drift into leadership because we didn't want to be that.
Yeah, and there are times when we would see, and I think the phrase that we hear now is we would see something that gave us the ick, or
Yes,
frankly, that hey, that just sucks. It's like
that sucks.
yeah, we are
That
not going to
bites.
do, we're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. And that's why you and I've talked about this a lot. That's why the leaders that I still try to this day to pattern myself after,
Mhm.
if they were, let's say they were older boomers or even younger boomers,
Mhm.
and they were just almost Gen X, or they were
Mhm.
just slightly older X than us. And there again,
Mhm.
it's we're speaking in generalities, but
Mhm.
those two, three people happened to be in my military career,
Mhm.
and they had an impact and an imprint on me that had nothing to do with them having been in the military. It was
Mhm.
how they led men and women.
Yeah.
They didn't lead with their stripes or with their bars or with their clusters, right?
Right.
They led with their minds and with their empathy and with
Mhm.
their understanding of how human dynamics work, and what
Mhm.
that young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old needed in order
Mhm.
to be successful,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I got to be led by those folks either after they had already been leaders for a long time and had it down and were going to retire within, a few years, or
Mhm.
they were in their
Mhm.
third, fourth, or fifth year of leadership if they were new, but
Mhm.
they had some experience and some inborn leadership that had nothing to do with their
Mhm.
authority, right?
Mhm.
I I still refer to those people today, as you know, whether implicitly or explicitly, in everything I do when it comes to
Mhm.
leadership. So I I'm glad you mentioned that what you saw me experience with that
Mhm.
younger leader was more manager than leader. I would agree with that assessment, and as rough as that was, what it allowed me to do was say, you know what? There are
Mhm.
two or three things that came out of that. One is I'm just absolutely not going to do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And sort of parentheses, where did he get that?
I
Who
I
is
don't
teaching
know.
them that this is the path to success, right?
I
If
don't think
anybody,
that I
you
think
know,
that came from a particular club. That's all I'm
maybe
gonna say.
so. That
That
may
was
be,
one of
yeah,
that was one of those hallway conversation type
yeah, yeah,
arrangements.
yeah.
And
That's,
the
yeah.
reason I say that is because that is outside the norm. And I watched you in roles where you had good leadership. Your previous position, you had good leadership,
Yeah,
very good leadership.
yeah,
And that's still somebody that comes up now.
yeah.
And
Still, yeah.
and you had good leadership in your roles.
We've all had good and bad spots throughout
Yeah,
and this,
right. And
yeah,
I
and I,
didn't yeah, I personally
yeah.
didn't experience good leadership till I was in my 40s.
Hmm.
I was managed and bossed until I was in my 40s. And ironically, my first good leader was a millennial.
You talked
Was
about
not
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but before I unpack that, I want to make sure that I don't end that learning experience I was just sharing
yeah,
with you there
yeah.
on what we might call negative
Mhm.
note, because
Right.
that experience, again, in two fundamental ways, reinforced to my mind, the validity of the approach I take as a leader. And
Mhm.
it also made me aware of, you know what? I had the right approach going in with an open mind, and going in and being willing to learn and to
Mhm.
challenge
You
my
did.
assumptions as a leader, and frankly be led. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, the lesson I learned also though too was there was a point when I began to uh, take too much of a back seat and let my experience and my skills
Mhm.
be subsumed or subverted by that other style.
Mhm.
And I should not have done that. And the reason is not even so much personal, but if I was ever going to have an impact on an organization like I want to do and
Hmm.
leave a positive impact in some number of years later, you have to exert your experience and your authority and say, no, what you're talking about does not work. I've
Hmm.
got 20, and please don't feel like I'm making you feel bad about you, dude, but I've got 20 years of experience on you. I've
Yeah.
done what you're about to do and it sucks, it's wrong, and it's not going to work. Stop. I'll
Hmm.
encourage you right now to stop.
Yeah.
And I won't go any further out of respect for the fact that you outrank me or whatever, but don't do that.
Yeah.
I
Right.
never had that conversation with that person like
Hmm.
I should have.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be to his detriment, not mine. I
Yeah.
learned that lesson years ago. I don't care, but he's not going to have applied that lesson.
Yeah.
And anyway, you were
And
saying
that's
that one of
unfortunate.
the, eh,
Hmm.
and I think it's our role as leaders, whether we are servant leaders or, whatever
Hmm.
stack, part of the stack we're in, it is
Hmm.
our job as leaders to lead by example, lead by experience, or be like Callie and just do what you want to do.
Yeah. It
Behind
just
us there,
wanders around being a
uh,
chatty Cathy.
a cat, right? So we have
Hmm.
to remember we have a role and we have a responsibility. And I'll
Hmm.
leave it at that. You were
Yeah.
talking about something I wanted you to unpack, and that was your best leader in the past 10 years or so has
Hmm.
been a quote millennial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell the listeners about that.
That was the first time I actually experienced actually working for somebody who ran a team like that. That had never been an experience I had before. I spent most of my career working in jobs where women were pitting themselves against each other. And if you were in any type of position where you were considered potentially intelligent, potentially promotable, everybody above you was beating you down. And there
Yeah,
was no
yeah,
leadership. It was always backstabbing and shoving each other. And I mean, it was terrible. I was constantly unhappy, never wanted to go to work. And I mean, Kale can attest to this. At this particular job I'm talking about, I was there until the business was sold and closed down. I did not
hmm
miss a day of work unless I was
no,
violently ill.
right,
And even then, I tried to work from home, um, because I mean, I didn't want to let her down.
right, right,
That's what leaders do, right? It's not that they force you to do the work. They don't you don't want to let them down. I want to just make sure that people understand that just because we're talking about how we as Gen X lead and that we're talking about how sometimes we have to figure out how to work with younger generations, and Kale had an experience with a younger generation that wasn't great. There are great leaders out there who
and that's the
are
key.
younger than us that are
And
wonderful.
that,
There are leaders
yeah,
that are our age that are great because my next boss after that was awesome. My next Gen X boss was awesome.
and the
So,
kicker though, as I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think what you're saying, and I want to make sure people hear it, is we are saying, hey, as much as again, this is about, we're saying the whole Gen X thing tongue in cheek, and we're using it as a point of reference. But we as leaders value leadership no matter where it comes from, older, younger, same age, peer level. We don't care.
mhm,
We like good leadership and we like things that we can
mhm,
steal, repurpose, borrow,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
share with whoever,
yeah,
right? And
yes. But
so
yes,
don't take away that we're somehow
mhm,
framing people or saying if you're under
mhm,
30 you suck, or if you're over
right,
60 you're dead. Nothing could be further
right,
from the truth. We are
right,
leadership sponges. I think that,
mhm,
and to go back to where we kicked this off, we came up at a certain age, or we came up in a certain era where we had to absorb information. It wasn't flying at us at a
mhm,
constant rate where we had to disregard it. We
mhm,
had to go get it. It was not
mhm,
as ubiquitous and as
yeah,
constant and as frequent and as varied,
yeah.
right?
Much harder to come by.
Yeah, we had to be intellectually hungry in order
Mhm,
to get any
mhm,
food at all, right, as it were.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. Remember, we were reading horror novels when we were 10.
It's true, true. Or if in the case of me, my mom was a nurse, so I had anatomy books and all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. So we're learning just the
Hmm.
honest collection of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that
Medical
people,
encyclopedia.
yeah, right, right. Talking about the different styles of leadership and the different abilities and different, are you a leader or a manager? All these kind of things. I think they in some way contribute to this question that you put in the box here. In what ways does executive intent get diluted or lost before it reaches the floor? Right?
Well, like there's couple things. So one thing, I think sometimes it's like the old game of telephone. I don't know if anybody even remembers that. You tell somebody, and then by the time it goes through three or four different people, the message has changed. Um,
We would sit
and
like a
then
now we'd sit in a little circle of like we're like eight,
yes,
9, 10 years old. We sit in a circle
right,
in at school or in the playground or
right,
whatever, right? Or
right.
at a
You'd
party.
whisper in somebody's ear. You'd say,
Right,
"Hey,
right.
you know, Kale has the world's tiniest ears." And then it'd go around the circle, and by the time you got to the last person, it'd be like, Kale doesn't have any ears. Well, but it dilutes that message. So that's one thing. The other thing is too, it's like there is a lot of knowledge and information that just lives in somebody's head, and so sometimes that intent doesn't actually make its way down, and it gets stuck. So let's just say I said to, you know, director Jane Smith, "Hey, I need this dashboard made for this particular goal. I need a dashboard for this." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And it goes no place else. And so it by the time, I she's out. Let's just say she has to be gone. She breaks her leg, has to be out. And I don't get that information that I need because the person that she's managing doesn't know anything about it because she's
Right.
never shared that message. It stopped right
It
there
didn't
because that
cascade, if you
it didn't
will.
cascade. So that's
Yeah.
another way. The message doesn't get shared with everybody that it needs to get shared with. So it either gets broken or somebody puts a blocker on it and it doesn't go past a certain level.
I've got one that I think will supplement what you were just saying, and it
Mhm.
ties directly back to some of the cultural and time-based aspects we were talking about as well in terms of communication barriers that we as leaders need to constantly be aware of and think through, and frankly, hate to say this word, manage that gap and
Mhm.
manage it in the sense of solving it, right?
Mhm.
And the thing that kind of popped into my head when I saw this question from you, and as you were uncovering it there from that, what I might call that operational perspective,
Mhm.
I go back to uh, references and cultural information. And so if a lot of times if we're talking, let's say we're working with a person who's of that younger generation, we have to sit and think about the term we use, not that the
Yes.
term itself is necessarily controversial, but the term has changed. The meaning of the
Right.
term is no longer the same. Like if we
Yes.
uh oh gosh, what's the Netflix and chill. We're gonna go chill
Right.
out.
Well,
Well,
even something
yeah,
so
yeah.
simple as a couple.
Oh yeah. I mean, the definition of the word couple,
Mhm.
from our perspective, couple means two. We've run in I at least, especially run into a situation where I say I need a couple
Mhm.
of some things, and the person
Mhm.
will just look at me
Well,
and
how many is that?
I'm like two, and I was floored and somewhat
Mhm.
a little coarse in my response. I'm like, what?
He was
Oh
mean.
shoot, it's two. It was
Yeah.
me. It was a little mean. It was a little mean.
Yeah.
But all that to say, as we and you and I have this little shorthand where if we feel like you and I as a couple are miscommunicating,
Mhm.
uh, we'll just say the word red. Longest time, Mindy and I would be having a conversation. She would say something, and it was in plain English. I would say something, it was in plain English, but the other person was just not getting it. And we finally figured out we were both trying to describe the color red to each other.
Uh, yeah.
We know what red is in our minds. We see
Mhm.
where it's like, well, that's red. And she's like,
Mhm.
well, no, that's red. And if we were ever trying to describe red to one another, we might describe it in two different ways. But by
Mhm.
God, we're talking about red. And
Yeah.
so rather than fight about the word, how to
Yeah.
think of the word red, we just say red. And we're like, okay,
Yeah.
let's do a reset.
Yeah.
Same thing in the workplace,
Mhm.
right? We're talking about the same thing as they are coming at it from a completely different, frankly,
Mhm.
newer reference
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
so I've learned, and this is hard, I've learned to sit back and listen and re-listen to what they said and go, okay, I
Mhm.
think they may have meant this way,
Mhm.
not the way I think of it.
Yeah.
And it's one word that's different or one phrase, or
Mhm.
they're talking about some pop culture, singer that I really don't follow. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And what goes with that is making ourselves vulnerable as leaders and saying, you know what, having to admit, I don't know what that is.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm not you don't want to look old, you don't want to look out of touch, but at the same time, if you try to BS your way through it, you lose your
Mhm.
credibility as a leader.
Right.
And frankly, you're losing that bit of respect from that person because you're not meeting them where they are and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
just think. And so all that to say, the disconnects come from communication, getting information from here to
Mhm.
here. It
Mhm.
also comes when you've got two people in the room and they are just not on the same page
Yeah.
because they're using two different,
You're s-
languages.
you're speaking two versions of the exact same language,
Right,
and
right.
they're just
Yeah,
not. It's
yeah,
like they're going like this. It
yeah,
happens.
yeah.
You may be okay. So here's a good example. So I used to watch a lot of MASH. I don't know if anybody who else remembers MASH. I used to watch a lot of MASH. And one of the things that Hawkeye Pierce used to say about pain sometimes is it was exquisitely painful. And I love that phrase. Okay. Exquisitely painful.
That's
So
because you're a weirdo.
Kale will give me a hard time. He's like, that means something like really good, like exquisitely beautiful. I'm like, but it can be bad also. It has to do with how sharp and how, intense it is. Right. And so somebody could say something was exquisite and they mean something really good, but I might be saying it's exquisitely painful and, we're not communicating.
Well,
Right.
and the worst part is that that exact conversation comes up, and
It happened.
we both literally grew up watching
Hmm.
MASH, and we've watched MASH
Hmm.
many times since then, all the way through recently, sometimes independently, sometimes together,
Hmm.
and we will go to our relative graves
Hmm.
disagreeing. It's like, yeah, I understand the denotation of exquisite, but damn it, that word does not mean bad. It doesn't, it goes with good, right? That experience was exquisite, not, oh, that hurt so exquisitely. No,
It was exquisitely painful.
it was odd. No, but anyway, but that's an example. And
It
even if
was
you've
a
got the
Captain.
same,
It was too.
if you've got the same frame of reference, you can still be disconnected. And Mindy and I have gone off the rails a bit to prove the larger point, though, which is again, that communication gap can come from so many different
Mhm.
sources and so many different angles that we as leaders, we as people, whether it's with our wives and husbands, it's with our children, it's with our peers, it's with our subordinates or our bosses, we have to really kind of have our heads on a swivel, I suppose, all the time
Mhm.
to be aware of some sort of a bias that prevents us from understanding the information being passed on. And it could be something as minor as the word exquisite, or it could be something as major as, hey, there's a particular key result or a particular strategy deliverable that we're going to miss or be late on because we didn't get the message one way or
Mhm.
the other. Right. So, uh, Gen X, Boomer, Zoomer, whatever you want to call yourself, we all have that responsibility to be plugged in, right?
Even if
Um,
it's exquisitely painful.
even if it's like this, like that word, right? Yeah, you're gonna get yours in just a moment. We're gonna go through one more question, and then you're gonna pay for that. Um, so, uh, how can we, and I may have answered this question here in that wrap up, but I will throw it out there anyway. What can we do? Again, we're putting that Gen X label on us. What can
Mhm.
we do as Gen X leaders build? How can we build systems that don't rely on our grit and our just get it done? What are ways that we can build systems that benefit from that experience, but don't frankly alienate the folks who come after us and have to work for us? How do we extend that very valuable learned experience? Okay. How do we make that portable for others? Is how I would phrase that.
I would say that the most important thing that a leader can bring to a team is to remember that your team is only as good as its weakest member. And that weakest member should probably be you. And you should surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and take their advice
Yes.
and build your systems based on advice from those people who are smarter than you and better at building them, and you execute on them. And you let those members of your team do their jobs
Right.
and
And
do
do it the
them
way they know
well
how.
because
Right.
that's what you hired them to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that's the one thing that you can take away from all of this, is remember that you are your team and you are a reflection of that team. And if they are better and smarter than you are always going to look good,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they are always going to give you the best that they can give you. And what you're going to put out there is going to be incredible. So that is where those systems get built, on those team members that are better and smarter than you.
Yeah, what you and I think in some ways what you've described is again it's almost the antithesis of how we were raised and trained by the folks. And again, we're speaking in generality, but
Mhm.
generally speaking, those folks didn't train us that way. It was
Mm-mm.
command,
Yeah.
a top down,
Yeah.
okay, authoritarian,
Yeah.
do it because I said, you
Yeah.
know,
You're dumb,
I'm
do
your
what I
mother,
say. Mhm.
you're dumb, you're French fries eye management, whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
everything
French
you said, I
fries.
agree with. If you as a leader are the smartest person in the room, you've got one of maybe two problems at the same time. You have got a team that you hired the wrong team and you need to fix that and train them
Mhm.
and make them better, or you've got the wrong impression about yourself and what you're supposed to be doing. Oh,
Mhm.
and you don't know your people very well. If you think that you're the
Mhm.
smartest person in the room, you better reassess, right? And let those people be successful and watch them, coach them, mentor them,
Mhm.
serve them. That servant leadership thing, it's
Mhm.
not like it sounds. Your job as a leader is to get things out of their way and live in service
Mhm.
of the men and women you've been made
Mhm.
responsible for. Their
Yeah.
success is your success, period.
Yeah.
And and then the other thing too would be empathy. And this is one of those things where, ironically enough, coming from me, it's taken me a long time to learn to practice empathy. But once I got a handle on it, I was able to copy paste it, if you will, into a lot of different facets of my life. Some of the best success I've ever had as a leader is putting myself in that person's shoes and saying, okay, what's driving them? What's their motivation? What's their almost like sort of like the method actor, in some
Mhm.
ways. And so that really does help because I'm not worried about it from, hey, I'm the leader. It's like, okay, what's my person's need?
Mhm.
Or why are they here today? Why are they not here today?
Mhm.
Why, when we're having a one-on-one, is it a one-way conversation? Whatever the particular situation is. So it goes back to what you said, empower your people, lead them, don't boss them, lead them and help them be who they can be.
Mhm.
They're going, people are going to come and go, but
Mhm.
if you care and feed for those people while they're there, they're going to be
Mhm.
productive and you're going to be a good leader.
Care for them, feed for
I,
them, remove obstacles.
that's it. That's it. And, that personal grit. I think the other thing that I truly do believe is a superpower of ours that comes again from that, called a generational blessing, if you will. If you think about it, there was none of that, you can't go outside by yourself. It was be home
Mhm.
by dark,
Yeah.
right? if we have to come
Don't
get you,
eat
you're in
dirt.
trouble.
Yeah.
Don't eat dirt. Be home by dark.
Hmm.
If you hear your dad whistle, get your ass home. And
Yeah.
every dad's whistle was different. You
It
knew,
was.
you know.
Yep. You
And if
knew
you
Dad's
went
whistle.
and if you rode your bike further than you could hear your dad whistle, you were in trouble.
Yep.
There were just these boundaries that were part of the DNA.
I could go
But
pretty far.
yeah, within that boundary though, there was a lot of latitude, and it
Hmm.
allowed us to learn and grow and be stronger. I think in some ways earlier
Hmm.
than we might have been elsewhere. We need to, as much as we can, impart the upsides of that to the men and women we're entrusted to
Hmm.
lead.
Hmm.
If in my opinion. Now,
Yeah.
this is something I told you were going to get it. We're going to wrap up the podcast today with a little thing that demonstrates one of Mindy's superpowers, and we'll see how she does.
Mm.
Years and years ago, I discovered one of her party tricks is because she is a music nut. She loves all kinds of music. She's just into every sort of music. She happens to have a really deep passion and love for what we might call 80s hair metal, pre-grunge, before Eddie Vedder, killed good music, or however you want to, before Nirvana, glam metal, right? Okay. So, and different variations on that theme. She's got this ability. I found out, you ask her, so okay, so who are the band members of so and so? And I started teasing her one time. I said, okay, all right. I know that these bands over the years have replaced people like most bands do. Who was their second guitarist, or she can even go deep with you sometimes on who produced the damn record. I mean, we're talking, you read the liner notes, she memorized them, she, may have, written her last name, as their last name
I
because she
did
was going to
not do
marry
that.
so and so,
No,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
The
a
point is,
weirdo.
she's got this power. So we're going to see if we can stump the chump today here a little bit. We're going to try to test her out. All right. And so I've been racking my brain about this one, trying to see if I can get one over on you. All right. So one of the places where, she and I as music lovers, we have a lot of overlap, and yet there are several bands where we don't see eye to eye. And probably the one good example I can come up with is I'm a fan of Guns N' Roses, and she is largely not. All right. And so I'm by no means a rock historian, so I really don't know a whole lot about the origin story of Guns N' Roses to maybe to the extent she does, and we're going to test that. I recently was told that there was a good person who auditioned to be the lead guitarist for Guns N' Roses, and he didn't get the job. Flash got the job instead, if you will, right? And so my question to you, Mindy, is: do you know who that guy was who didn't get the gig?
CC DeVille.
CC DeVille, and he's the lead guitarist for Poison, the blonde headed, right? Right.
Yeah.
People, go ahead.
The reason why he didn't get the job, if I remember correctly, was because he wore too much makeup.
And I think the answer is he didn't get the job because he wasn't a fit. It was a cultural fit thing, right? Fit. He had the skill, he just didn't have the cultural fit.
He had the
So
skill for Poison.
he had the skill for Poison. So that little thing there, we'll try more of that over the weeks to see if we could have some fun, and maybe you stump me with something else. Would you like to leave any last wisdom with anybody? Maybe if any Tango and Cash level of wisdom, you know, uh,
Fubar.
as we Fubar, yeah,
Big time.
yeah, Fubar, big time, yeah. And
Hmm.
she can leave some links to Ingve, and she can leave some links to Tango and Cash. Any
Oh,
reference that
yeah.
we've made, any reference we've made, we'll leave some links to some other ones to share some things we were talking about today.
Leave some links to some of our favorite things.
That's right, that's right. And the 4 or 5 people who
Hmm.
who like those things. The last thing I'll say about the Ingve is I've loved 2 women in my life, and they were both Ingve fans. And that I don't know if that was coincidence or it's a type. I don't know, but there's something to unpack there.
It's
Is that
taste.
taste? Is that what it is? They have good taste in men. Is that what it is?
Music.
I see. I gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, on that note, folks, thank you for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.